You don't want to go any further. It's dangerous. My friends are all dead. They were all murdered by people that look like this. I have been chosen.
I think we've all had our own experiences or seen media and art that could be described as trippy, and that's what I'm calling this game. Killer 7 is the artistic drug trip by Japanese game designer Goichi Suda, better known as Suda51, and is the trippiest game I've ever had the tripping pleasure to trip on. Developed by Suda's studio Grasshopper Manufacture and published by Capcom for the PS2 and GameCube, I got this running on the PS2 emulator PCSX2 with almost no problems. Right away, Killer 7 draws you in with its art style. The entire game is cel-shaded with a minimalist look to almost everything, most likely due to the hardware limits of the consoles at the time, and while it doesn't look too great on a 1080p monitor, it is still eye-catching and beautiful to look at, even if while emulating there's some jagged edges on the character models and the environment. And the story? It's nuts. It's right at home with these visuals. The best way to describe the story is it's almost any anime ever made, crossed with Tom Clancy. It involves a syndicate of assassins being hired by the US government to take down a Japanese terrorist organization with possible links to the Japanese government before they destabilize the United States and destroy humanity's one true chance at world peace. Throw in some naked, genderless suicide bombers that laugh like the Joker, and an elderly, wheelchair-bound assassin with split personalities, and you've got Killer 7's story. Silly descriptions aside, the story is very imaginative and well written with plenty of interesting, albeit two-dimensional characters, and it paves the way for some moments and scenes that would have friggin' traumatized me as a kid. But the real star of Killer 7 is the gameplay. I've never played a game quite like Killer 7. To quote Yahtzee, I'm not quite sure what to call it. A puzzle game, action adventure, rail shooter? Personally, I'd call this a combination of rail shooter and adventure game. You're stuck running back and forth on linear tracks that divert onto different paths, you scan for enemies before shooting them in place from a first-person perspective. The control scheme does take some getting used to. It will put some people off, not to mention the precision aiming to take out certain enemies can be a real fiddly bitch at times, but it's not something you can't get used to, and there's actually a good layer of strategy to it, with the different playable characters having different attacks and special abilities to explore the levels with, and not to mention there's a wide variety of enemy types that require different strategies to effectively take down. Like giant motherfuckers that can only be killed either with grenades or by shooting out their eyes. However, the enemies can be a little problematic with how movement is done, since if you're not careful they might start to gang up on you, and because movement is so rigid, running away from them can be, well, hard to do. But outside of combat, all you're really doing is solving puzzles and item hunting. The puzzles can be pretty straightforward, but there are times where they can be obtuse, something that is mitigated by one of the two most unique characters in the game, Yoon Hyun, the ghost of a Korean man who will sell you hints in exchange for blood, and flips you the bird while doing so. Pretty much all the puzzles culminate in one of two things, either finding engraved objects that act as keys to access the rest of the level, or picking the right ring that was given to you by a talking head, or using the right character-specific ability to open a path and find a soul bullet. Soul bullets are one of two things in Killer 7 that they can just fuck right off. With how the game's designed, movement is almost exclusively forward, and the soul bullets are necessary to fight the bosses at the end of a level, for some reason. So if you didn't find enough soul bullets, you can't finish the level, meaning you have to trudge all the way back through the linear areas you came through, refight whatever enemies respawned, just to find whatever fucking bullets you missed and be granted access to the end level boss fights. Which reminds me, the other thing that they can fuck right off are the boss fights. I should clarify, the first boss fight isn't too bad, it's what you'd expect. dodge her attacks at the right time, and shoot her weak points at the back. Simple, yet somewhat challenging. But every subsequent boss fight I had to be fought in such a specific way or unnecessarily change things up that it throws you off and it becomes more of a chore than a challenge. The second boss is beaten not with an actual fight, but just by shooting her more than she shoots you. And since there's a player character who was made to shoot really fast for crowd control, she just becomes a cakewalk. And the fight with the Japanese officials? They require so much more precision than a gamepad's analog stick, and not to mention the precision character's gun will allow, that you'd be forgiven for rage quitting multiple times during this fight. If nothing else, at least each boss fight is unique onto itself. Killer 7 is not for everyone if that wasn't clear enough. Everything from its game design to its visuals and its story is going to be hit or miss based on personal taste. But if you do decide to give it a go, you will be able to experience what real experimental game design looks like, and quite possibly experience one of the few games that truly does deserve, in my opinion, a remaster. Thank you for watching. If you really like this video, then have at your like, favorite, and subscribe, as well as check out some of my other videos as well. And I've also heard in the rumor mill that Goichi Suda is actually interested in doing a remaster of Killer 7 and has been asking people about it on social media. And I just have to say, Mr. Suda51, make it happen, please. That aside, for upcoming reviews, I've actually got some planned on Call of Duty World at War, Final Front, and Revolution 60, as well as some movie reviews, so stick around for those.